Paul. As Polonius said, brevity is the soul of wit, okay? Just keep that in mind. Yeah, he mentioned the board, hard-working board, about the hardest working board that I've ever been involved with. And we have a few board members here today, a few more on the way, but we have Chuck Cashman from Marine Max, Mike Scalisi from HMY, and Gary Smith from Sarasota Yacht and Ship. And did I miss anybody? Because we have a few that are straggling and on their way and all that. Really, they don't just get together once a month and hang out and talk and have lunch. They really work hard, as outlined by Paul. I want to mention our format today. We're going to have a couple sessions. We're going to go on break as close to 10:45 as we can get it. I'll reserve the right, depending on how these panel discussions go, to either expand the break or shorten the break or reschedule the break. So just be aware we'll have 2 sessions. We'll then go on break, and you can catch up on your emails, have a cup of coffee, so forth. After break, we'll have 2 more sessions, and then we will go to lunch. And one more comment, and 2 more comments. One, the pink sheet. This is the template for future seminars and future webinars, whatever we do. Comments are appreciated, ideas that you might have for the future and all that. Emma and Casey will collect those at the end of the day. And the last thing is, the most effective kind of seminars are those that are interactive. I encourage you, there'll be Q&As at the end of these, at the end of each session, time allowing that is. And the back and forth, it doesn't work to just simply listen to a panel, but if you have some concerns, if you have some questions, jot those down and then ask them during the Q&A time, all right? Speaking of that, take good notes. Remember I said that? Take good notes, okay? Melissa?
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and thanks, IYBA, for having us all here. I'm going to introduce both of my wonderful panelists here. Yeniss Palacio from American Airlines. She's the Senior Global Sales Leisure Account Manager. And I think the person sitting next to me needs no introduction, but Sean O'Brien on the sales side from Global Marine Travel. Thank you both for coming.
Cool. We have kind of we're doing our missing man formation here. Patricia Arredondo is our British Airways / Iberia Airlines sales rep. And she had committed to this, and unfortunately, she was not able to make it today. But Yeniss can handle a lot of those questions as it relates to the One World Alliance group. So she'll be able to pick up the baton. No worries.
Thanks, Sean. I think a lot of people probably still continue to travel. I know for myself, last year I traveled. Looking forward to traveling this year, I've noticed that there's a lot more people traveling. And it seems that we're sort of getting back into the norm, you would say, of where we were back in 2019 or pre-pandemic. Do you find that that's true and that the same routes are happening and the same travel plans are still going forward?
Yeah, I think you have to realize just how far travel fell off during the pandemic. Can I just see a show of hands, like who has been on a commercial airline flight in the last year? How about international? Okay, so there's a bit of a drop-off there. Yeah. You know, it's going to be interesting. It's not a flick of the switch, you know, although it seems like that when everything happened, as far as flights being canceled. You know, everything was related to COVID. And there's ebbs and there's flows. The airlines obviously can't fly places where there's a lot of heavy restrictions in place. What we see now on our side is, you know, we kind of think that you're going to see a lot more emphasis on the hub-to-hub premise, and there may not be the number of boutique routes, even seasonal routes, that you may be accustomed to. So, you know, the Charlotte to Munich, the Philadelphia to Dubrovnik, the JFK to Nice, you know, those sort of things. You know, it may be a little bit more, not arduous, but there's probably going to be a lot more instances where you're going to have to take connecting flights, and that's whether you go out of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, regardless.
So kind of going back to maybe even into the 90s, earlier
It's a
than
couple,
that.
yeah, and Yeniss, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've hosted actually 2 airport tours. I hosted one last year and one this year. And I could tell you that the amount of passengers that are traveling and even corporate passengers was impressive in me. We find that customers are eager to travel, especially now with the widespread vaccinations and restrictions starting to ease. American expects for short-haul flights international and domestic leisure to start up first, and then long-haul international and domestic business.
And do you think with this increase in flying and more passengers happening that we're going to see changes to airfare and so forth? I know, speaking with a few people that were looking at going internationally, the flights are very expensive regardless if you're flying economy or if you're flying business or first class. Do you think that more people flying will change those prices then?
So I can't speak specifically to pricing, but I can tell you that we have various fare products depending on our different product types. So we have fares for leisure passengers and for corporate passengers, and they're all to remain competitive in the market.
And like with our contracts with American and the One World Group, you know, those haven't fluctuated. So they're the same rates that they were even pre-COVID. So if you guys, being in the industry, you're traveling on boat-related business, you know, it's not, you know, we don't necessarily call them crew fares anymore because, you know, the audience and the eligibility for that has really expanded to people that are traveling within the industry directly on boat-related business.
And at GMT, are you still doing the marine fares? Because I know when I've used that internationally in the past, it's been a lifesaver. And even though it may have been more expensive, it did help me if I had to make alternative changes and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where the marine fares were not only flexible with extra baggage allowance, et cetera, but they were also like the cheapest thing going. And so, you know, it was a win-win-win all the way around. That's not really the case anymore. You will sometimes pay a little bit more upfront for those tickets. We pull from live inventory. So if we can get a seat on a flight, even if it's, you know, decide 2 days you need to go do an inspection or take a potential guest over to inspect the boat, you know, there's that ability to do that. And you may pay a little bit more upfront, but the thing is, it's, you know, it's kind of a bank and a savings account. And if something happens, you got to cancel the trip, you got to change dates, whatever it may be, you know, you get that money back. And we can then even apply it to different airlines, different days, et cetera.
And would you say that the routes, even though they have changed, are going to stay? Or would you say that we'll be seeing new types of routes happening? So if we're traveling maybe even domestically or internationally, that there may be some that we should be looking out for that may be a better option?
So this summer, American Airlines is launching 150 new and seasonal routes. We recently announced our new routes to and from Austin, including 4 code-share flights for Alaska Airlines. We also increased service to Orlando, as well as 2 new routes to India. We also recently announced Tel Aviv and Athens that we're very excited about.
Awesome. And you think with these new routes, as you're coming up with them, that perhaps will give us a better insight into more travel for passengers, and you'll see heavier traffic start to flow then? Do you have any predictions on what you'll see for the traffic patterns?
Absolutely. I mean, for May alone, we saw the domestic booking load factor was at 84%, and for a Memorial weekend, for the holiday, it was up to 88%, which is fantastic. You know, we're expecting those trends to continue through second and third quarter. And we even expect higher yields in 2019 for the leisure market.
That's awesome.
I think those kind of numbers too, that reflects again the leisure sector. And exactly as Yeniss said, you know, I think that's the thing that's going to bounce back first. But, you know, there's going to come a time pretty soon where companies are going to fall out of love with Zoom and Teams meetings and webinars and things like that. And so, you know, once there's just a little bit more, I think, stabilization of things, you know, companies will at that point start to want their people to start to hit the road again versus just doing things virtually.
Yeah, I guess that's
which is great for us and the industry.
It's a great question. So when you're running numbers and so forth, are you seeing that the leisure is taking that step first versus business class and other passengers are that reason, or if their travel is more leisure than it is business purpose?
Yes, absolutely. So leisure definitely picked up first, and what we're starting to see is a lot of short-haul international flights. We hope that domestic business and the long hauls will pick up next.
Yeah. And on the international side, what are you seeing there? Are you seeing that more people are flying internationally, going across the pond, and that is actually picking up? And is there anything that we should be predicting or like looking at as far as international travel on that?
Absolutely. Our flights to Mexico and Caribbean are doing fantastic, and it all depends on the countries as they open up. We find that people are eager to travel and get out there. And we do our best to promote these flights and put special promotions out there. So for example, on short haul flights, if you purchase premium, you get access to our Admirals Club, which normally you had to hold a premium long-haul international ticket.
And with international, if we have questions, like we don't know what the restrictions are going to be into the place that we're flying into, is American doing anything that there is someone that we can contact, or do we find out when we get to the airline? Do we need to speak with someone like Sean from GMT? What kind of things can you provide for us that would be helpful tools? Because obviously a lot of us haven't traveled internationally for a long time. We don't maybe know what's required of us when we get there.
American has lots of travel tools available. You could access them through AA.com. I personally use Sherpa, and Sherpa tells me exactly what to expect, if the country is open, and what to expect upon arrival. And it's all very simple. All you have to do is enter the origin and destination, and that even works for domestic flights. I remember last year we were going to Boston, and Boston was requiring for you to have a PCR test, and that was in there. It's not just for international flights.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's several different platforms that give that kind of information. We use a lot the IATA site and Timatic, which is where you can literally plug in origin, destination, transit point, passport, and your nationality. And it'll come up and just gives you a nice little clean screen with, like, you know, any requirements as far as vaccinations, if you need any to do any online health declarations or attestations beforehand. That's primarily international, but there's areas where it's still a very much I don't want to say volatile, but it's very fluid, and it changes a lot. And so it's important that even though you do that when you're booking your ticket, 48 hours out, check it again, and you know, just make sure. I mean, Italy, out of the blue, changed their PCR from 72 to 48 hours, and you know, that's nothing that we get a message on. You know, if it's a canceled flight, if it's a delay, you know, the airlines, American, et cetera, will let us know, and then we pass that on to the passenger if they're not alerted immediately. So, you know, we're getting there, you know, but there's still things that you need to do and be a little bit more proactive about in order to ensure that, you know, you're not jilted at the altar and denied boarding for whatever reason.
And I guess internationally, do you see any countries or city-specific or regions, locations that are, I guess you would say, maybe volatile at the moment? Tourism really isn't back. It's kind of unpredictable in terms of what it's going to be like to fly there. Are you seeing anything on that maybe we should be holding off for those locations till things progress further?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, South Africa, any of the India subcontinent right now. I had, you know, we deal a lot with Australians and Kiwis, you know, New Zealanders as far as crew go, and a lot of people in general in the industry. So Australia, they started out when COVID hit, you know, it was kind of this one of these, you know, we're going to figure it out and make it up as we go along things. So initially when COVID hit and they put in their restrictions, even for their own citizens, they limited arrivals for the entire country to 300 people per week. That's like 1 777 fully loaded. They've since, you know, they've been able to gradually ramp it up to about 3,500 now. But originally, you know, people would call us, I need to go, when can I go, what's the cost? And it's like, first, go get your appointment set for the quarantine accommodations. You know, even though you're going home, you know, you are going to have to do this. And then get back to us, we'll build the flights around that. So now they've changed it to where they literally can do the hotel once they arrive. There's still a cap in numbers that's monitored by the government in conjunction with the airlines. But Monday, I got a call from a friend of Tim, the owner of the company. He's a Kiwi trying to get home. He's like, you know, my mom's not doing well. I need to see some friends and family there. Well, there's really no exceptions for that. And he went online, he tried to get his accommodations booked, and the first day available was the 24th of October. So there's still areas like that that still have a pretty heavy clamp on just different protocols and procedures. And again, even for their own citizens to get in.
And I'm sure that's got to make it difficult on the airline side because you can't control those restrictions. So you're having to play sort of the middle game between us and where you're flying into. Have you been receiving any more information on places like that?
So we try to upload everything on that site that we told you that we have, which is we've partnered with Sherpa, where whatever these destination requirements are, we make sure to load them there. We also recently we partnered with Verifly, and it's a health app. So when you're traveling abroad and you're coming back into the United States, you can load all of your medical documents in there and requirements. That makes it a bit easier for entry. All we could say is that American Airlines is committed to travelers' safety, and it's a top priority for us.
I will say I was excited on my last flight during Memorial Day. Actually, I saw that the beverage cart came by, so I was quite excited. I felt that was a whole new world, to be perfectly honest on
Certainly
that.
You got your priorities right, Melissa.
I didn't have the baggie anymore of water. So I guess the other question, Sean, is throughout the pandemic, and I guess even now, have you seen more requests come in for like private jets? How are we getting in? Do we have clients can they fly into these places, et cetera? Yeah,
in general, it's following a lot of the same protocols and regulatory things that are in place for commercial service right now. I know that the charter guys were just pulling their hair out trying to keep up with demand because the people that really had the travel that met exceptions could get in the countries where perhaps there weren't very advantageous routes open at that point. So yeah, charter air, absolutely. And they're still trying to keep up with demand. I field calls from a lot of the broker community now about, the boss wants to fly from San Antonio to Salerno. Is he going to be able to do that? And it's very, it depends on where you're going. It depends on the nationality of the people, the registration of the aircraft, where those passengers have been in the previous 14 to 21 days as well. So yeah, it's sky high right now. Another option, though, that I wanted to mention was the COVID-free flights, and maybe you can expand a little bit on that, Yeniss, or?
So the COVID-free flights?
The COVID-free, so American, there's Delta, there's United. They've got, basically, it's a pre-screening. It's the very select destinations now, primarily Italy. So Rome and Milan. I think one of the airlines is starting actually Venice service, but it's not till August. But anyway, so you do your normal test. At the airport, before you board, you do another test. And then when you arrive on the other side, you're tested again. And at that point, you're basically clear. And there are some other things you have to do, like a self-attestation and things like that.
And that's regardless if you're vaccinated or not.
Yeah, exactly. The vaccination thing is another kind of thing that's in the kind of the larval stages right now. It's not, there's really nowhere right now where they need that except Tahiti as of June 1st. They initiated, it's great if you have your PCR and your antigen and this and that, but you must have a vaccine at least 14 days prior to entering Tahiti.
believe Athens as well requires vaccination, and I think Spain now is allowing passengers
in certain
Right.
region, yeah, it depends. Like Italy and Spain, it's regionalized, so again, it's a little bit to keep up with, so it's best to, make sure you do your homework and check with us, check with the airline. If you've got another office, an affiliate, maybe a colleague that can point you in the right direction. The best intel is sometimes the intel that's there with their boots on the ground.
So with vaccinations, because I think so many people are now vaccinated around the world, do you think that we're going to get to that point where it's going to end up being a health visa in order to travel internationally, even domestically? Are we seeing that, or heartbeat on that?
So we don't know about that, but we do know that we have partnered with Verifly that kind of does work in that way, where it does house all of your medical documents required for entry. So in part, that's similar to.
There's a lot of the airlines and the CDC and IATA. There's a lot of different programs now that are kind of being beta tested before they're rolled out. And I think what's going to happen is there will probably be an entity that steps in and takes like the best pieces from both. Because like with the program that Yeniss is speaking about, that's strictly for their partner airlines, for American and their partners.
And I think Alaska Airlines, as well as Hyatt Hotels, has joined as well.
Right.
So there's several different ones.
And that's another thing. When they do this, and as they're kind of putting this all together, it's not just going to be that you whip out your card when you go to travel. I think they're looking for something that has a broader base and more of an all-encompassing purpose. So if you're going to go to sporting events, like I know one of the airlines is beta testing right now at Coors Field and where the Texas Rangers play. So they're using it for that. It may be concert venues and things, big events, things like that. Maybe it's rolled out for university and schools and, regular office type building situations and things. And so, it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out.
So the index card will just go into your files. You'll have something digitally.
Yeah,
instead.
Big Brother. Yeah.
I'd also like to say that we've partnered with Let's Get Checked, and that allows you to actually do an at-home testing, and that way you could be prepared once you get to the airport and you're ready to travel. And then there's also now that's something that's rolling out where you're able to purchase these test kits that you could take with you international and test abroad, and those are being accepted as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier. So do you think we'll ever get back to normal travel, or what will the new norm look like? Do we have any idea of that, or the masks, et cetera?
I mean, Qantas Airlines, which again, partner, they haven't had a plane in the air in almost a year and a half. And they're literally waiting for, they don't want to do the antigen and the PCR. They want something down where it's an actual vaccine. Well, you're going to need a certain segment of the population there to make it viable before they start operating flights, especially on the international sectors. So, it's going to be a while. I mean, as you call normal, I think it's going to be about 2 years before we see flights, a lot of the boutique market flights and things like that, business travel on the rebound where people are comfortable with it again. It's going to be a couple years. That's my gut sense.
Is that kind of what you're feeling too, or are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our goal is the best traveler experience possible, and we're trying to simplify things as much as possible. I feel that so long as we remain safe, and Americans' commitment is to keep everyone as safe as possible.
I think I'm going to look to Bob and Paul and see if we have any questions, I guess, from the audience. And I'm sure this has been a hot topic on a lot of people's end. I think we've
Somebody's
got two
got to
down
want to
here.
know something about travel. Mike Scalisi wants to go somewhere.
I want to go to the Bahamas this summer. What can we tell our customers and in our own flights over there and boats, current restrict vaccination cards? What are we dealing with for a little closer to home here in the Bahamas?
Yeah, everything is pretty stable at the moment, although last night you were mentioning about Chubb.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone heard, but I heard currently that Chubb does not have customs at the facility right now. So
Yeah.
might want to check your customs locations before flying out.
But I will say, if you go to the Bahamas.gov, that website is very well maintained, and it's updated almost daily. And the Bahamas, you know, it was funny because back, even at the Palm Beach show in March, you know, the talk was, okay, well, ground zero is going to be Florida, Bahamas, we're going to do New England, make it down to the Caribbean, maybe do some Costa Rica or some Panama. And it's funny how, you know, now things are starting to happen in Europe, and you're seeing the limelight kind of shift back over to Europe, and everyone's like, yeah, you know, guess what? We can make it happen. There's a shot, you know? Yeah, so fingers crossed. I mean, hopefully things keep trending the way that they are.
For those of you that haven't traveled to the Bahamas, I'm sure, I mean, a show of hands would show probably 70% of the people here have been to the Bahamas over the course of the last 7 or 8 months since things have opened up a little bit. But the Bahamas Health Visa is attainable by going, you can Google Bahamas Health Visa, it'll take you right to the site. It's a very simple process. You do have to have the PCR test, or now, if you have your vaccination card, you can upload that vaccination card, and it's a very simple process going in and out of the Bahamas. I've been several times. I go way down into the southern Bahamas, so it's not quite as regimented as it might be in Nassau or Freeport, but nobody wants to go to Nassau or Freeport
Right.
anyway. So.
I felt the same.
And remember, you need another test to get back into the United States.
If you're there for 5 days, but the test is to get on the airplane, not to get into the United States, isn't it?
Right.
Yes.
Because when I come in through private aviation, customs said to me, we're not in the health checking business. You know, you have anything to
Go.
declare.
And I
That was
believe
Have a nice
also
day.
make sure to check, because I think if you're there for less than the 5 days, that health visa, you then have to pay for your actual PCR test.
You do.
Whereas with the health visa for 5 or longer days, it's covered.
right, and the health visa is like $40.
Yeah.
Is there any time frame for masks, like when they think you're going to discontinue that practice of making you wear them?
On the aircrafts, that all
Correct.
depends on the FAA. So if they require it in the airports, we will require as well on their airplanes.
Sorry, Mike, but we need you to wear a mask. Come on, somebody else has to have a question here. We got an expert travel panel.
Sean, you originally, when you first started talking about sites for regulations, you mentioned IOTA, and what was the other site?
There's one called Timatic. If you want to give me your card, or I'll give you mine, and I'll make sure that you get that. Maybe it's something you want to put into the next into a bit article or something in the next issue of Compass or something, Paul.
Anybody who could write that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who else has a question?
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming today. I really appreciate your information, your knowledge. Just a quick comment. We just came back from the Bahamas 2 weeks there. There's a couple services that actually come to your boat. And we'll do testing when you get to the Bahamas and also when you're headed back. So that was really, really good. And then just a quick comment. When you get your Bahamas travel health visa, good idea to actually put in your favorites, so you can, because every time you get off the boat, they'll check it in Highborn. But as we went closer down to the Exumas, it was fine. Yeah. There was no checking. But a couple places, before you got off the boat, you had to have it. So.
Good
Yeah, and I'll say
advice.
when I flew to
That's
Eleuthera,
great.
they wouldn't even accept my digital one. So I had to leave the airport, go across the tarmac to the other area to have the agent print it out for me. And I said, how is this COVID free?
Yeah, it's a little fluky, but Bahamas was really nice. The question I have is, we're getting ready to go to Poland on Sunday for about a week. Have you heard of any changes recently with Poland?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, the main ones that are like open for business right now, obviously it's Croatia, and Greece is also there. Italy's real close. Spain is actually doing really well, also. Mhm. No, UK, I would, I would steer clear for a little bit. Yeah.
It's Brexit. It's another story. What other questions do we have? Nobody has a question? When you do go to the Bahamas, print out your health visa and your PCR tests.
Yep.
It's a really good idea. Yeah, it's handy to have them on your phone, and I had them on my phone as well. But the customs officer, immigration officer, they want to have a copy of it. They'll take it from you.
They want to stamp it.
Yeah, and you know what? For the 3.5 cents it costs you to print it, I think it's well worth the while. Nobody else has a question?
If you guys have anything that comes up, anything at all, please, it's flygmt.com. And you can get my email off there, or I've got some business cards now. I'm more than happy to beat the bushes and find stuff out that you guys may need, and that's critical for you booking charter guests.
Or you can go direct to the source, aa.com, put in L5A3868. That's my frequent flying number. I can use the miles. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you brought that up. So because you joined us today, and thank you for having me, I really do appreciate being here with you guys. If you are an Advantage member, if you have regular status, we're going to go ahead and upgrade you to Gold. And if you have Gold status, we'll upgrade you to Platinum. All you have to do is leave your Advantage number. I imagine that they can leave it with you, your first, last name, and email address. How
Yeah,
can
that's
we
fine. We can
that?
collect them out with the girls, actually.
Perfect.
And then get them.
That's amazing.
So I just need your company name,
Hold on.
title, first name, last name,
Me
and
first.
Advantage, and that way I could enter all the information needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's an awesome perk.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, about that business class upgrade, we'll talk about that later. Okay. All right. No other questions? Melissa, Yeniss, Sean, thanks very much.
Thank
Great
you. Thank
presentation.
Thanks for having us.
Dad?
No, just, it's palms up, It's not as fast as getting back to normal as what we would like. It's going to be a process. Just have patience. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll get there.
Awesome.
You guys have a great season.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bear in mind, Don.